I'm here. I'm getting ready to do something. Ever since I started doing this little video thing, I've wanted to do this, and it's one of my favorite poems of all time. People think it's a children's poem, but if you think about the meaning of it, it can be any child of any age. It's by a crazy man named Edward Lear, and you'll get just a little bit of a hint from the opening song. I play just a little bit of it. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. And you saw butter and pepper and vinegar. Oh, and I forgot. Bread. So that gives you some kind of hint. I'll tell you what, if you're a fifth grade teacher, this poem can go a long ways in teaching a lot of things on those standards. So, Edward Lear, it's called The Walrus and the Carpenter. And all growing up, always heard the most famous line of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings. I never listened to the entire poem. The Walrus and the Carpenter by Edward Lear. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the Walrus said, that they could get it clear? Oh, I doubt it, said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Oh, oysters, come and walk with us, the Walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk along the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each. They're very helpful chats, aren't they? The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The elder oyster winked his eye and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat. And this was odd, because, they hadn't any feet. 4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4. And thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. I'm going to stop this a minute because I forgot to dedicate this poem at the beginning to my daughter Gretchen in South Carolina, because she loves oysters. The Walrus and the Carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the Walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. But wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and all of us are fat. No hurry, said the carpenter, and they thanked him much for that. And I do want to show you a picture before I can turn the page. There's only 2 pictures, so let me see if I can get it in here. So here are the oysters, lined up in a row, following the carpenter and the walrus. There's the carpenter and the walrus, and there are all the oysters following him in a row. And finally, the carpenter and the oysters sit down for a little while, and they want to have a little snack. And the oysters said, "Can we rest just a little bit?" Okay, and I'll show you that picture now before I read. And I got to go back to the other page, but there they are. They're taking a rest, talking to the oysters. Just a little bit here. Ah! A loaf of bread, the oyster said. Or, the oyster didn't say it. A loaf of bread, the walrus said, is what we chiefly need. And pepper and vinegar, besides, are very good indeed. And now, if you are ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such a kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. The night is fine, the walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice. The carpenter said nothing, but cut us another slice. I wish that you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, that Walrus said, to play them such a trick after we've brought them out so far and made them trot so quick. The carpenter said nothing, but the butter spread too thick. Oh, I weep for you, the walrus said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief. Here's my pocket handkerchief, holding that before his streaming. I'm the walrus. Oh, oysters, said the carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer came there none. And this was scarcely odd. And this was scarcely odd, because they had eaten everyone. Now, before I start the last song, there's a little addendum up here in this book. I said for a lot of years after writing this poem that Lewis Carroll decided that the story should end with some type of way that the walrus and the carpenters would be punished for their cruelty, their lying, and probably their dinner habits. So when a musical came out called Alice in Wonderland, where I've never seen Alice in Wonderland. And it was being prepared. He wrote some additional lines, the movie, where the ghost of the oysters take revenge on the walrus and the carpenters by jumping on their chest while they sleep. In other words, giving them indigestion. I think I'll have to watch Alice in Wonderland. Don't like the press. Maybe it's too dumb, the oysters. It's a good oyster. I bet they like that one.